Hello, classic rock fans. I am here today to tell you about a new compilation CD that I came across recently that really impressed me. It's called I See You Live on Love Street, music from Laurel Canyon, 1967 to 1975. The title, of course, is from that Doors song, Love Street. I see you live on Love Street. It's from Cherry Red Records, and it is a follow-up to a compilation they put out in 2022 called Heroes and Villains, Sounds of Los Angeles, 1965 to 1968. This new compilation moves forward in time and focuses in on the Laurel Canyon neighborhood in Los Angeles, which at the time was an absolute hotbed of music and creativity. Some absolutely essential bands in classic rock history got their start in this area in this time. Talking about groups like the Byrds, the Doors, Fleetwood Mac, Frank Zappa, Linda Ronstadt, Carly Simon, Steppenwolf, and a favorite of mine, Warren Zevon. And that's really just getting started. This collection features 72 tracks across 3 discs, and it comes packaged with a really nice booklet which features a write-up on every single song, as well as an introductory essay which I will read from here. This essay comes from David Wells of Cherry Red Records, and he writes, "While some considered the so-called Laurel Canyon sound to be a matter of musical style rather than geography, we've taken it as a physical location rather than a state of mind, thereby showing the breadth of music that came out of a scene that saw the likes of Zappa and Beefheart working cheek and jowl alongside Glenn Campbell and Three Dog Night, Carly Simon and Judy Sill, Poco and the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Canned Heat and Steppenwolf, the Mamas and the Papas, and the Association." So there's a pretty wide breadth of musical styles and even genres in this compilation, but it is sequenced in a way in which you would hardly notice, as the songs really flow into each other, and it makes for a very cohesive listen. It was a good mix of big recognizable hit songs along with tracks that I didn't know from artists I had never even heard of, but after I had heard their songs, many of them I wanted to look up and learn more about. Going back to David's essay, quote, "Regrettably, some members of the Canyon's aristocracy, Joni Mitchell, Carole King, CSNY, James Taylor, Jackson Browne, Eagles, can't be included in our anthology as their renegotiated contracts contain a clause that forbids their appearance on multi-artist compilations. Fortunately, the Laurel Canyon scene was so incestuous that they all contributed to each other's recordings, and we are therefore able to represent all of the key names as songwriters and or backing musicians. Featuring heavyweight acts like the Doors, whose Love Street provides us with our title, Buffalo Springfield, and the Byrds, alongside rather less familiar but equally relevant names, I See You Live on Love Street is as close as any record label will get these days to legitimately compiling a definitive overview of Laurel Canyon during those halcyon days." Yeah, I think that's spot on. Obviously, there's contractual issues that prevent certain bands from being on compilation CDs like this, and that's unfortunate, but as the essay says, they found creative ways to getting a number of those artists included, given that they perhaps did backing vocals on other songs or contributed lyrics to certain songs. So this really is as good of an exploration and celebration of the Laurel Canyon scene of the late 60s and early 70s as I think one could make. And that's fascinating to me because we're talking about the origins of some of the biggest names in classic rock history, and this compilation is a good look at not only some of their early work, but also some of their contemporaries who maybe did not turn out as successful as like the Doors or Fleetwood Mac, but they would have been the bands that the Doors and Fleetwood Mac were listening to at the time, as these groups all knew each other and respected each other. So if you want to know who was perhaps an influence in one of your favorite bands from Laurel Canyon, chances are some of their favorites are included on this list. So real quick, let's just take a look at each of these 3 discs and you'll get an idea of what's included in this collection. Disc 1 includes songs from The Association, The Monkees, The Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, The Doors, The Mamas and the Papas, Buffalo Springfield, The Byrds, and even Captain Beefheart. And one that I had not heard before, but I really enjoyed, is called Train Leaves Here This Morning by Dillard and Clark. I had not heard that song, and I was not familiar with the duo, so this is the start of a rabbit hole for me. Now I want to learn more about this group, and I'm going to see what I can find. Another example of this on this same disc was Twilight Sanctuary by The Leaves. I had never heard of The Leaves, but this Twilight Sanctuary song is really cool, so now I have something to explore. Disc 2 features songs from Stephen Stills, Poco, Hoyt Axton, Three Dog Night, Glenn Campbell, Steppenwolf, Dave Mason, Frank Zappa, David Crosby, and Warren Zevon. It opens with Love the One You're With by Stephen Stills, and that's quite the big hit. So if you're worried this collection might feature too many obscurities and deep cuts, well, here's a good example of one of the big hits that's included in the compilation. That's probably Stephen's biggest song. It's an absolute signature song of this era of rock and roll. Very cool to see it here. Another signature song from that era of rock is Mama Told Me Not to Come by Three Dog Night. That's just about one of the best songs ever. That's just such a fun song from a great band. Glad to see that included here. For Steppenwolf, they went with It's Never Too Late, which I think is a good pick because, of course, Born to Be Wild and Magic Carpet Ride are a bit overplayed and a bit overexposed from a band with a much deeper catalog than just those two songs. And hearing this song on this compilation reminded me of reading John Kay's autobiography, in which he wrote quite a bit about a lot of these same artists because he spent, some years in Laurel Canyon, and that was one of the most interesting parts of his book. So if that's a book you're planning on reading, this CD compilation here might be a good companion piece to it. Also, the Warren Zevon song on this list is Wanted Dead or Alive. And that comes from Warren's debut album, which is impressive because that album is a little lost to time. A lot of people seem to think that his 1976 self-titled record was his debut, but it wasn't. There was one from 1969 that was not a hit, and I'm glad they included it here because even though Warren's more famous stuff came out later in the 70s, that falls outside of their 1967 to 1975 parameters for this collection. And skipping Warren Zevon on a compilation about Laurel Canyon would be a huge mistake because Warren was a big part of that scene. He was very well known in the artist community. It just took him a little while to get that second album in 1976. So glad that they dug deep to represent Warren here. And then the third disc features songs from Little Feat, Linda Ronstadt, Carly Simon, Crazy Horse, Loggins and Messina, Graham Parsons, and Fleetwood Mac. You have Birds by Linda Ronstadt and We Have No Secrets by Carly Simon. Two of the greatest vocalists ever. Just such beautiful vocal stylings. Glad to see them here, and good song selections for both of those. And disc 3 concludes with Fleetwood Mac's Say You Love Me, which is one of their best songs. It's a Christy McVie song, and it was a big hit from Fleetwood Mac. So again, there are plenty of obscurities and deep cuts on this compilation, but it is anchored with some really successful, accessible, popular rock hit songs, and this is a good example of this. Say You Love Me, honestly, that might be the best song on this whole compilation, so it's fitting that that's how Disc 3 closes out. Now, if you're interested in getting the CD, you can get it from Cherry Red Records' website. It's cherryred.co.uk. They're a UK label. And you can also get the compilation on Amazon. And even if you're not interested in getting this compilation, I would really recommend you find Cherry Red on social media and also check out their website because they have a gigantic catalog that is full of some really cool stuff from our favorite classic rock artists. I saw they just put out like a box set for the Runaways. If you want to get this compilation, the link is in the description below, along with our social media links. And if you have a moment, could you let me know if you enjoyed this video? Please post a comment if you would like to hear me review and talk about new releases more often like this. I started this whole channel with the intention of spotlighting projects that celebrate and elevate the classic rock music that we love. And an example of a project that does that would be a new compilation like this. Because this is not a slapdash compilation with no common thread. There is a point to this collection. It's a history lesson. It's going to take you back in time and to a specific place in rock history and give you a sense of what these artists were listening to and what they were working on together. I don't know, I just think that stuff is cool. And there's a little more depth to it than the typical CD compilation you would see on a late night infomercial. If they even do those anymore. So yeah, if you are interested in this compilation and you get a copy, please let me know and let me know what you think about it. And if you would like to see me do more reviews of projects like this, also please let me know so I know there's an interest for it. Because I follow a lot of labels and publishers and I'm on a lot of mailing lists. So I see a lot of new projects that I think are really cool and want to pass that information on. So if you would like to see more videos in which I do that, I'd be happy to. Just please let me know in the comments if this is at all interesting. With that, please check out Cherry Red Records and keep rocking.